Welcome to Game Changers, Silicon Valley, a show about people who have made a significant contribution to our technology and our lifestyle, and also about people who are currently working to be tomorrow's game changers and introduce game changer innovations. My name is Jim Connor. I'll be your host tonight. Tonight's show will address a difficult situation in our society. The fact is that approximately 50% of all marriages end up in divorce. It's an extremely expensive process, both financially and emotionally, and it has an ongoing toll on the emotional outcome and emotional condition of the children. My guest tonight is Sheri Atwood, the CEO and founder of SupportPay. And Sheri is one of those people who experienced had quite an experience and decided to do something about the problems and the discomfort she was experiencing, started a company called SupportPay to address this very issue. Welcome to the show, Sheri.
Thank you.
Delighted to have you here. Please give us a little overview of your background. You've got a fascinating background, and what brought you to start SupportPay?
Yeah, so I was a child of a divorce and raised by a single mom, and my parents had a horrific divorce, so I saw all the conflict that occurred. So several years ago, when I faced my own divorce with my ex, we swore it would be amicable, and it was. In fact, it only cost me $350. But the problem was after the divorce, we had an agreement to share our daughter's expenses, and I quickly realized that there was nothing out there to solve the problem. I was a vice president at Symantec. I was traveling the globe, juggling being a single parent, and when it came to, hey, you owe me this or I owe you that, I was looking for a solution, and to my surprise, there was nothing out there.
Wow. So you settled down. For $350, you got to a settlement. You got that through the court system. And then how long did it take before things started to fall apart? And what was your first inkling or hint that this was not going to go smoothly?
Yeah, so usually what happens is people go through a divorce or the separation and they're on their divorce high. So for about 6 months, things are great and wonderful. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it says, oh, we're going to share expenses. So, he owes $50 for her cheerleading and I owe this for her gymnastics and you didn't pay me for this. And it's really interesting because they say the top 2 reasons for divorce are money and communication. Yeah. Yet when you get divorced with kids, you have to communicate about money. Okay. So it doesn't get better, it gets worse.
I see. And so you ended up being responsible for your child's support and financial costs. Is that how it took place?
Yes, so we agreed that he would give me my base support amount that covered household expenses, but we'd share other things like her child care, and he'd pay 1 week and I'd need to pay the next week, or medical expenses, extracurricular education expenses. And with those things, they fluctuate over time, so I found myself on top of everything else trying to be a bill collector, saying you need to pay this because there was no bill. Nobody was sending him a reminder. It was all left up to me.
Yeah, you alluded to this, that there is no system out there that the government will do this for you, and that you either have some agreement among the parties to act civilized and meet your obligations, or you're left to become a bill collector. How did that affect your child then?
Yeah, so what most people who don't go through this, and I faced this myself, was they don't realize how big of a problem this is and how many people are impacted. So if you look at the U.S. alone, there are 55 million parents that live apart. Globally, that number is about 450 million parents. Of those 55 million parents that live apart, 16 million of them are managed through the government. But there's this other 39 million parents that exchange over $200 billion every year, and they get the agreement, and they have all these legal professionals. Then all the professionals step out, and it's left up to these parents to try to figure out how do you now manage this agreement that they had agreed to with the professionals.
So when did so you were traveling, you're working, you're juggling all this stuff, all this hassle and these problems, and when did you decide to focus on SupportPay or solving the problem? Yeah,
so what happened was 3 years ago, I found out my daughter had to have brain surgery, and she's totally fine now, but it was that point where I realized I was working all these hours and I was spending all this time away from her, and I really thought, if I'm going to spend that much time working on something, I want to work on something that I believe in, I'm passionate about, that can really change the world in a small way. So I started about 3 years ago, and honestly, I was looking for a solution. I thought for sure I'd find something out there. I, would see it, and then I would know there was something out there, and I could go back to corporate America. But I couldn't find anything.
I see. So how did it start out? Did you start the company yourself then?
Yes, absolutely. I started it myself. I was bootstrapping funding myself, so I didn't have the money to pay a developer.
Right.
So I actually built the first prototype on my own.
see.
I did all the research. I talked to moms and dads who pay, who don't pay. I talked to a lot of legal professionals, judges, mediators, to really collect the information to see, was this really going to solve a problem?
So there's, looks like 16 million of the 55 are handled by the government. 39 million are handled with some civilized agreement or some willingness to meet the letter of the agreement. Which part did you work with the most, or do you work with?
Today we are working with the 39 million,
39 million.
the ones that have nothing out there. And really what it is saying is, if the parents, for example, say, you know, we're going to share expenses, the feedback I got from the parents was the ones typically paying, usually the father, it says, I have no problem paying, I just want to know the money is going to my kid. And the mom is saying, he has no idea how expensive these kids really are. So with our solution, now you can actually enter an expense and you can take a picture of the receipt. And it sends that to the other parent. It does all the notification and communication, and they can see that the item is actually for the child and then make a payment immediately.
The payment is then initiated by the paying parent. It's not drawn off their account.
Correct. It's actually made by the paying parent after he sees where the money has gone.
Do you have the ability to draw the payment from the parent? Or would that be a court order if you wanted to go that direction?
So if you wanted to go that direction, you can. There's laws to support it, and what our system will do is help track all of that. Usually if somebody's, even the 16 million who are going through the government, many of them are doing that. It's called wage garnishment. But you don't have to. But usually in the absence of anything else, people would get that. And even in that case, the government only manages that base amount. They still don't track or help manage childcare, medical, education, or any of these additional expenses. So our solution could not only address the ones that aren't being drawn, but also help the ones that do draw, but also are owed additional money on top of that.
Okay, so you have a big chunk of the market that's a fit for your application, and it sounds like you're finding a strong adoption rate, a strong embracement of the value you're providing. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we launched about 10 months ago, and we just hit 6,800 users. We're getting between 500 and 700 new users a week right now, and the feedback has been fantastic. And even for people who don't have the problem, it's, I know somebody who needs this, or I wish this was out there.
I explained your company to a couple friends of mine who have gone through divorce, women friends, and they said, well, I'm not sure, it's very difficult. I couldn't get the guy to pay. I couldn't get the former husband to pay. Do you also get involved in that?
Yes, so even for those that don't pay, we're not going to do the enforcement, but in order to get that money at some point, you have to provide documentation. So in California alone, for example, you have to fill out 32 pages of documents to file to open a case with child support services. As part of that documentation, you have to provide a complete history of all the child support either made or received or not received. What our system does is gets all that data together, and now simply with the click of a button, you print it out and you can file your papers. So we're going to help them and help these parents track what they're owed, as well as address the biggest reason why people don't pay, and it is proving that the money is actually going to the child.
I see. When you file that paper, then what's the turnaround to get that into the court system? Is that?
Yeah, so it typically can be anywhere from a week if you went to somebody in the private sector, such as a mediator or a private judge, or if you need to go in front of a public judge, it could be as much as 3 months. So it is a long process, but many people don't realize that they have to file that court paper and they have to file to open a case, else nothing will happen.
Do they need an attorney to file that, or can they do it with your system?
Yeah, most people, that's another big question we get from people coming to our site is, do you know a child support attorney? And it's like, you don't. I did my divorce myself. People don't know the paperwork is right on the different state sites. You can get a link from our website, in fact, to help fill it out, and you can go down to the courthouse yourself.
How many states are you able to do this in?
We can do this for all 50 states, plus provinces, plus American Indians, and then there's 55 countries that actually have similar laws. And so we have customers right now in UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, as well as the US.
Really? That's remarkable that your system is that adaptable to meet that many states, because most of the states have variations on the reasons, the dates, and you've maintained all that and developed all that? Yes,
because what we did is we based it on the federal standards. And again, we come in after the order or agreement has been made. So once you have an order that you're going to share this at 60% or 40% and you're owed $500 for childcare a month. Once that agreement is set, you then register in our system, set that up, and then we automate the process from there.
So after, so it maintains all this documentation during that time period of which support's to be paid and so on like that. Typically 10 years or so, is that an average?
Well, most people think that
Yeah.
child support ends at 18, and it doesn't.
I see.
And then now we have a lot of parents even through college, and they said 72% of new college grads return home after college.
Yes.
So imagine as your child returns home, and then you now still have expenses you want to share with the other parent.
Yeah.
So typically our users are, we would estimate 12 years, but it can go on, you know, then you want to share expenses for a new baby or a wedding or grad school. Our system can help manage all of that as well.
That's great. I'd like to take just a few minutes, we're getting near the end here, to ask you about your experience as a woman entrepreneur. You started the company yourself and you built this out. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, it was an interesting one.
Yeah.
I guess you could say I'm probably the least typical entrepreneur here in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
I am a single parent. You know, I don't have parents or any of that. And it was definitely hard. It was, but I kept at it, and I was about a week away from actually shutting things down before we were able to close a seed round, which we closed in May of $1.1 million with the most fantastic group of investors.
That's great. That's one of the wonderful things about Silicon Valley. People will step forward and help you. I have the impression you probably had significant mentoring too along the way. And
yes, absolutely. And the Silicon Valley is so great for that because there's so many entrepreneurs here.
So you're operating here in the Valley, correct? Your
Yes.
programming, everything's operational here. What a person, man or woman, should do if they want to engage with you, they just go to the webpage, which is...
You can just go to supportpay.com.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter at Sheri Atwood, Sheri Atwood, and it's an easy way to reach me.
Is there a Facebook account also?
Yep, it's facebook.com/supportpay.
Great, great. Sheri, one last question. If you were to talk or give advice to a woman who wanted to start a company and you want to sort of save her some anguish that you went through, what would maybe 1 or 2 points be?
It would be, one, you have to be passionate about it and be willing to stick by it when nobody else believes. So make sure you pick something that you're going to be passionate about for many years to come. Okay. And then get a great group of supporters and mentors to help you along the process to learn some of the tricks of the trade.
Yeah, great. And you used all your own capital in the beginning, is that correct?
Correct. I self-funded for 3 years.
Can I ask you how much you had to put into the company?
Well, close to $300,000.
Okay. Well, it's good that you had a successful career and had that
Correct.
savings aside. Not everybody has it, but it also showed tremendous belief and fortitude on your part to invest that amount. I'm sure that impressed your investors.
Yes, yeah.
Sheri, I want to really thank you for your time. It's been a delight to talk to you and interview you and learn more about SupportPay.
Thank you so much.